Welcome back. We continue our look at AI, the intelligence revolution this morning. Dream Security, a sovereign AI and cyber defense company, recently announcing a $260 million funding round, bringing the total company valuation to $3 billion. This new financing will allow Dream to accelerate deployment of its sovereign AI and national cyber defense platforms across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and the Americas. Joining me now is the co-founder of Dream Security. He is also former Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz. Sebastian, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to see you, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Tell us about Dream and what you are trying to achieve here.
So we started 3.5 years ago with the idea that countries in the past were super nations if they had nuclear. And we thought that in the future, countries will be super nations if they control cyber, AI and quantum. Quantum is still a bit early, but we try to help countries with support in AI and cyber with our, first of all, cybersecurity solutions, AI-based, and second, sovereign AI solutions.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this AI arms race with China, and it seems to be ramping up with Beijing's latest moonshot model, reportedly on par or even outperforming platforms like OpenAI or Anthropic in some cases. Governments across the world are also racing to fend off more technologically advanced cyber attacks as we see AI get implemented. Sebastian, what are your thoughts there?
So, first of all, I think that AI will bring a lot of positive things to the world. So I think we should be very optimistic because of AI. But of course, you're absolutely right. If it gets in the wrong hands, then it can also used in a very evil way. And cybersecurity is definitely one of the areas that will be very much affected. If you look at cyber attacks, for example, in the past you needed a strong team, a lot of money, a few months of time to find a few vulnerabilities. Now with AI, one person or a small group of people with much less money can find hundreds of vulnerabilities within a few minutes. So we will see a totally new scale of cyber attacks in the future. We will see that our traditional cybersecurity solutions will not work anymore. And so I think this will be a major threat for individuals, for our economy, and also for our societies, because cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, they can create a lot of chaos in our societies.
So do you think the U.S. is ready for this, Sebastian? I mean, you know, we've been reporting a lot on Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's meeting with the AI players and the major banks as he tried to ensure that industry is ready for potential bad actors with agentic AI. Do you believe, with all of these cyber threats that you're talking about, the U.S. is ready to actually overcome and fight back on cyber activity?
So, first of all, I think if we are honest with ourselves, we have to admit that nobody can really be ready, because AI is changing everything in such a fast way that nobody exactly knows how the world or cyber threats will look in 6 months from now or in 12 months from now. What we know is that the traditional way to defense will not work anymore. And I think if we look at the US, we can probably say that, of course, the US and China are the two nations that are the most advanced. So I think if someone is more or less ready, then it's definitely the US. But also here, I think the situation will be a very different one in a few months from now. We are mainly working in Southeast Asia, in Middle East, and in Europe to support countries that don't have the same tools that the US or China have at the moment.
I see. Let me switch gears, Sebastian, get your take on Andy Burnham officially becoming the new Prime Minister of the UK. He's positioned himself with socialist policies. His proposed agenda includes extensive state ownership of utilities and expanded social housing. But, Sebastian, President Trump is praising Burnham's idea to open access to the North Sea oil. Your reaction to the new Prime Minister in the UK?
Well, I'm probably a bit biased. I'm a conservative. I was in government in Austria for 10 years. I'm pretty much worried when I look how the UK developed in the last few years. But in general, I think the UK is a great country. There are elections ahead, so let's see what the future will bring. In general, I think no matter if it's the EU or the United Kingdom, the most important thing is to stay competitive. We live in a world that is changed by AI, that is changed by technology. And if we look at the economic figures, then we have to admit that economy should be much better in Europe and the UK. And I think there's a lot of work to do for us, not to lose the global race and not to lose competitiveness compared to the US or China.
Sebastian, do you believe the US is winning the AI race with China?
Well, I think it's difficult to say. I think that both countries, the US and China, are definitely far ahead, especially when it comes to foundational models. I think it's very difficult to catch up for other parts of the world, like Europe, for example.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to use cases, when it comes to sovereign AI solutions, there's still a lot of room also for other parts of the world. On foundational models, I think, the US and China will stay ahead. And comparing the US and China, I think if you look at open models, probably China will win this race, but probably too early to say.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you do think China is moving forward then. Sebastian, thank you. We'll be watching all of that. We so appreciate your time. Sebastian Kurz joining us this morning.